Have you ever wondered how many great science fiction movies from the 1950s and 60s quietly slipped out of the conversation, even though they shaped everything we watch today? Before CGI and franchises, these films relied on ideas, atmosphere, and raw imagination. This list digs up 15 full-length sci-fi classics that still feel alive, strange, and surprisingly relevant right now. Number 15. Destination Moon, 1950. Destination Moon does not feel like a fantasy about space. It feels like a serious argument that humanity will go there, whether it is ready or not. Released at the dawn of the space age, this film treats space travel as an engineering problem instead of a magical adventure. Rockets are heavy. Fuel is limited. Every decision has consequences. That alone makes it stand out from most sci-fi of its era. The story follows a group of scientists and industrialists racing to reach the moon before rival nations. There are no aliens, no monsters, and no secret villains hiding in the shadows. The tension comes from physics, risk, and the possibility of catastrophic failure. Watching it today, you can feel how revolutionary this approach was. The film even pauses to explain complex concepts in simple visual ways, trusting the audience to stay engaged. What makes Destination Moon special is its confidence. It believes science itself is exciting. If you enjoy modern realistic space films that focus on problem-solving and survival, this feels like their great-grandfather. It belongs on this list because it shows how early science fiction could be intelligent, forward-thinking, and deeply influential without relying on spectacle. Number 14. The Thing from Another World, 1951. Set in a frozen Arctic research station, The Thing from Another World wastes no time establishing its stakes. A mysterious crash, a buried shape in the ice, a group of professionals suddenly trapped together with something they do not understand. From there, the film becomes a tight pressure cooker of suspicion, urgency, and survival. Unlike many later monster movies, this one emphasizes teamwork and discipline. The characters are not reckless or foolish. They argue, they debate, and they make decisions based on incomplete information. That realism gives the story weight. The creature itself is less important than the way people respond to it. Fear spreads, but so does resolve. What makes this film endure is its pacing. Scenes move quickly, dialogue overlaps, and tension builds without long speeches. If you enjoy siege-style stories, where people must work together against an unknown threat, this still plays incredibly well. It earns its place here because it helped define the blueprint for isolated horror sci-fi long before the genre knew what to call itself. Number 13. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. This film opens with an alien visitor landing not in a desert or a secret base, but in the middle of Washington. That choice alone tells you everything about its intentions. The Day the Earth Stood Still is not interested in thrills first. It wants to talk directly to humanity, calmly, firmly, with consequences. The story follows an extraterrestrial envoy delivering a warning about violence and technological power. There are no chase scenes driving the message. Instead, the tension comes from misunderstanding, fear, and political reaction. The famous robot and its silent presence add to the unease without ever overpowering the ideas at the center. What makes this movie timeless is its restraint. It trusts silence, it trusts conversation, and it trusts the audience to think. If you prefer science fiction that feels like a philosophical warning rather than a roller coaster, this is essential viewing. It belongs on this list because few films from any era use science fiction so purely as a moral mirror. Number 12. War of the Worlds, 1953. War of the Worlds captures something many science fiction films never quite manage again, the feeling that humanity is genuinely outmatched. From the moment the Martian machines emerge, the tone is not adventurous or playful. It is grim, overwhelming, and deeply unsettling. Civilization does not rise to the challenge. It buckles under it. What makes this version powerful is its sense of scale. Cities burn. Military power collapses. Ordinary people are forced into constant motion, never safe, never certain where the next attack will strike. The film does not rely on a single hero saving the day through cleverness. Instead, it emphasizes how small individuals feel when faced with forces beyond comprehension. The story also carries a quiet spiritual and philosophical weight. Humanity is not portrayed as the master of its destiny. Survival comes through humility rather than dominance. If you enjoy apocalyptic science fiction that focuses on helplessness and awe rather than triumph, this still hits hard. It belongs on this list because it represents classic sci-fi at its most serious and uncompromising. Number 11. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Few science fiction films understand paranoia as well as this one. Invasion of the Body Snatchers begins quietly, almost casually. People complain that loved ones feel different. Familiar faces seem emotionally hollow. What starts as discomfort slowly becomes terror as the truth reveals itself. The brilliance of this film lies in its restraint. There are no loud reveals or elaborate effects driving the fear. Instead, the horror comes from the idea that identity itself can be erased. The enemy does not attack violently. It replaces you while you sleep. That concept was terrifying in its own time and still feels deeply unsettling today. This movie is perfect for viewers who love slow, creeping dread and social anxiety wrapped in science fiction. It rewards attention and atmosphere over spectacle. It earns its place on this list because it proves that the most frightening sci-fi ideas are often the quietest ones, the ones that make you question who you can trust. Number 10. Forbidden Planet, 1956. Forbidden Planet looks like a colorful space adventure on the surface, but beneath that shine lies something far more complex. Set on a distant world, the film follows a rescue mission that slowly uncovers a terrifying truth about intelligence, power, and the human subconscious. What sets this film apart is how far ahead of its time it feels. The electronic music, the advanced technology, and the ambitious themes all push well beyond typical science fiction of the era. The real danger is not an alien army or hostile planet. It is the unchecked force of the mind itself, made real through forgotten technology. If you enjoy science fiction that blends psychology with grand ideas, this one is essential. It rewards patience and reflection, revealing its true meaning piece by piece. It belongs on this list because it shows how bold and imaginative mid-century sci-fi could be, laying groundwork that later classics would build upon for decades. Number 9. The Incredible Shrinking Man, 1957. The Incredible Shrinking Man begins like a straightforward science fiction premise and slowly transforms into something far more personal and unsettling. After exposure to a mysterious cloud, an ordinary man starts shrinking at a steady and unstoppable rate. At first, it feels almost like a novelty. Clothes must be altered. Furniture becomes oversized. Friends struggle to react normally. But the film refuses to stay light for long. As the shrinking continues, the story narrows its focus inward. What happens to identity when the world no longer fits you? What happens to masculinity, pride, and purpose when strength and control disappear? The film uses its concept not for spectacle, but for emotional erosion. Everyday objects become life-threatening. A basement turns into a hostile wilderness. Survival becomes moment to moment. What makes this film remarkable is its philosophical turn in the final act. Instead of ending with a cure or rescue, it leans into acceptance and perspective. Few science fiction films from any era are brave enough to do that. If you enjoy sci-fi that starts with a hook and ends with an existential reflection, this one hits hard. It earns its place here because it proves that classic sci-fi could be intimate, tragic, and deeply human. Number 8. Them 1954. Them opens with eerie images of a devastated desert landscape and a frightened child wandering alone. From that moment on, the film establishes an atmosphere of unease that never fully lets go. What begins as a mystery investigation slowly reveals one of the most iconic threats of 50s science fiction: giant ants mutated by nuclear testing. What separates them from lesser creature features is its seriousness. The film treats its premise with genuine concern rather than camp. Scientists debate causes. Military leaders weigh consequences. The threat feels like a direct result of human action rather than random fate. That underlying theme gives the story weight beyond its surface spectacle. The pacing is deliberate, allowing tension to build as the scale of the problem becomes clear. By the time the ants fully emerge, the audience understands what is at stake. If you like science fiction that reflects Cold War anxiety and nuclear fear without preaching, this is a perfect example. It belongs on this list because it shows how monster movies were often cautionary tales in disguise, using imagination to process real-world dread. Number 7. The Blob, 1958. The blob starts in small-town simplicity and quickly descends into chaos. A strange substance falls from the sky and begins consuming everything it touches. At first, it feels almost absurd. Then it grows and grows and grows. What makes this film so effective is its escalation. Each encounter with the creature raises the stakes without overcomplicating the story. There is no grand explanation that removes the mystery. The blob simply exists, expanding relentlessly, absorbing people without emotion or intent. That simplicity makes it terrifying. The film also captures a strong sense of youth culture colliding with authority. Teenagers see the danger first. Adults dismiss it. That tension adds energy and momentum as events spiral out of control. If you enjoy fast-moving science fiction that wastes no time and delivers constant pressure, this one still works beautifully. It earns its place here because it proves that even the simplest sci-fi concepts can become unforgettable when executed with confidence and pace. Number 6. The Fly, 1958. The Fly is often remembered for its shocking ending, but reducing it to that moment misses why the film truly works. At its core, this is a tragic story about ambition, love, and the dangers of unchecked scientific confidence. A brilliant scientist invents a teleportation device and decides to test it on himself, convinced he has accounted for every variable. He is not. What follows is not a fast transformation, but a slow unraveling. The horror builds gradually as small details begin to feel wrong. Behavior changes, physical symptoms emerge. The audience watches helplessly as intelligence and humanity slip away piece by piece. The film's power comes from how personal the consequences feel. This is not the end of the world. It is the end of one man's life as he understands it. The emotional weight is carried by the relationship at the center of the story. Love does not prevent the tragedy, but it makes it hurt more. The Fly succeeds because it treats science fiction as a vehicle for loss rather than spectacle. If you appreciate sci-fi that leans into inevitability and moral consequence, this one still lands with surprising force. It belongs on this list because it proves classic sci-fi could be intimate, disturbing, and deeply sad without ever raising its voice. Number 5. The Time Machine, 1960. The Time Machine taps into one of the most enduring fantasies in science fiction, the desire to move beyond the present and see what becomes of humanity. The story follows an inventor who builds a device that allows him to travel forward through time, witnessing centuries pass in minutes. What begins as curiosity quickly turns into disillusionment. As the traveler moves further into the future, the world becomes stranger and more unsettling. Civilization does not advance in a straight line. Comfort gives way to decay. Beauty masks danger. The film's greatest strength lies in how it visualizes time itself as a destructive force rather than a gift. Progress does not guarantee wisdom. This movie works especially well if you enjoy science fiction that feels like a warning rather than an escape. The future presented here is not shiny or triumphant. It is divided, fragile, and haunted by the mistakes of the past. It earns its place on this list because it uses a classic premise to explore class, complacency, and survival in a way that still resonates today. Number 4. Village of the Damned, 1960. Village of the Damned opens with a simple but chilling event. An entire town suddenly loses consciousness. When the residents awaken, nothing seems immediately wrong. Then, the children are born. From that moment on, the film becomes a quiet nightmare that never fully releases its grip. The children are intelligent, emotionless, and disturbingly unified. They do not rage or attack impulsively. They observe. They calculate. Their power lies in control rather than violence. What makes the film so unsettling is how polite and orderly the threat appears. There are no dramatic invasions or explosions. The danger grows behind calm faces and soft voices. This is science fiction as psychological horror. The fear comes from authority losing relevance and morality becoming irrelevant to survival. If you enjoy stories where the menace is subtle and intellectual rather than loud, this is a perfect fit. It belongs on this list because it shows how sci-fi can terrify simply by suggesting that the next generation may not share our values or compassion. Number 3. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. The Last Man on Earth presents a future that feels empty long before it feels frightening. A mysterious plague has wiped out most of humanity, leaving one survivor wandering through silent streets and abandoned buildings. There are creatures out there, but the film is not in a rush to show them. Instead, it lets loneliness do the heavy lifting. What makes this film so effective is its atmosphere of exhaustion. The main character is not a bold hero searching for answers. He is a man simply trying to get through each day. He repeats routines. He talks to himself. He clings to memories because there is nothing else left. When danger finally arrives, it feels almost secondary to the emotional damage already done. This movie works best for viewers who appreciate science fiction that slows down and allows mood to take control. It is about survival, yes, but also about grief, isolation, and the psychological cost of being truly alone. It earns its place on this list because it shows how sci-fi can strip everything away and still remain compelling. Even without spectacle, the emptiness itself becomes the most haunting element of all. Number 2. Planet of the Apes, 1968. Planet of the Apes opens like a straightforward space exploration story and slowly transforms into something far more provocative. Astronauts crash land on a strange world where apes rule and humans are hunted, studied, and silenced. From the beginning, the film challenges expectations about intelligence, power, and civilization. What elevates this film beyond its premise is how seriously it takes its ideas. The apes are not cartoon villains. They have politics, religion, and fear of the unknown. Their society mirrors humanity in uncomfortable ways. Watching it now, the allegory feels sharp and intentional rather than dated. The film builds patiently toward its famous conclusion, layering meaning along the way. Questions about evolution, control, and moral authority are woven into every interaction. If you enjoy science fiction that uses world building to hold up a mirror to our own behavior, this is essential viewing. It belongs on this list because it proves that classic sci-fi could be bold, unsettling, and intellectually confrontational while still delivering unforgettable entertainment. Number 1. Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Night of the Living Dead may look simple on the surface, but its impact is enormous. A small group of strangers barricade themselves inside a farmhouse as the dead begin to rise. There is no epic score guiding emotions. No heroic reassurance that help is coming. Just tension, mistrust, and fear slowly tightening its grip. What makes this film extraordinary is how merciless it feels. Characters argue. Leadership fails. Cooperation collapses. The real threat is not only outside the house, but inside it. The film strips humanity down to instinct and panic, using its sci-fi horror premise to expose deeper social fractures. This movie changed everything. Its bleak tone, shocking moments, and refusal to offer comfort set a new standard for the genre. It earns the top spot because it represents the moment science fiction fully embraced realism and consequence. Watching it today, it still feels raw, confrontational, and unsettling in ways many modern films struggle to match. These classics prove that great science fiction does not need massive budgets or modern effects to leave a lasting mark. If you discovered something new here, let me know what deserves a part 2. There are still countless forgotten gems waiting quietly in the shadows of classic cinema.